So here's our second assignment. You're going to go ahead and make a key fob and emboss your name on it just like I did here. I'm Mr. Wesson. My first name's Eric. By the way, this Larry Watson up here, that's just a sample student that I created for your teacher and I. So I'm just going to show you what to do here. I'm just going to go ahead and close this. You're going to go to your classes again, pick your class, and click on the key fob activity, and then click copy and tinker. And that's just going to open up a new fresh Tinkercad file, but it'll be linked so that your teacher can help you with it. Up here, I'm just going to go ahead and change the file name. We'll just call it Our Key Fob, and let's go ahead and begin tinkering. Now, to make this simple key fob, I'm going to be introducing a bunch of new tools, so you're going to have to follow along carefully, or else if you just kind of head up on your own, you're going to end up with a mess. So let's go ahead and begin. So I'm going to bring out a box, put it right there, and I'm going to make it, I'll just click on this corner, click up here, and I'm going to make it 60 millimeters long, hit my tab key, and make it 30 millimeters wide, and then click this little box here in the center for the height. There we go. I pressed the F key so you can see a little bit better. So I'll click this right here and make it 5 millimeters thick. Now, if you put that in your pocket, it's going to be somewhat, it has sharp corners. So let's go ahead and change the radius. How does that look? Yeah, let's change it to about 3. So I'll just click up here, type in 3, hit enter, and that looks nice and smooth. So that's the beginning of it, and that's a good start. If you want to change the color, and I'm going to because it just makes it a little bit easier for visibility on the screen, you can go ahead and do that. Now, I need to make the next part here, and I want to put it on this end. Now I could take and drag and drop, I think this is called a roof, and I could spin it up, and I could try to carefully maneuver it over here so it's just on that face, but that's really hard to do. I mean, it'll snap and it'll get close, but there's a much more elegant way to do this. So up here you have what's called the work plane tool, and the keyboard shortcut for that is W. So I'm going to orbit around here. And by the way, I'm orbiting with my right mouse button, just holding it down, and that's typical Tinkercad behavior. And I'm going to put it right there. And now you can see how the work plane, the object that we're drawing on, or the plane that we're drawing on rather, is on the end of the key fob. So I can now bring out a roof like this. If I pull it away and hit drop, see it sticks right back on there. And it doesn't look like it's in the same plane as the end of the main part of the key fob, but it is. So now what we want to do is just go ahead and kind of make a shape here. So I'm going to just grab these corners, kind of like that. Let's see, how does that look from above? Yeah, it looks okay. And let's see, it's obviously too tall, so let's go ahead and find that height arrow, or actually the height arrow is going to adjust kind of the bulge. And I'm going to just go ahead and leave it about there, 10, which is a semicircle. And I'm going to pull this one up. Oops, that does my screen. There we go. Now the main body of our key fob was 5 millimeters thick, so I'm going to click right here, and I'm going to make this 3.5 and hit enter. Now, how do we get it so that it is exactly where we want it to be? Well, now I'm going to show you a new tool now. Now to reset my work plane, all you have to do is just zoom out here click here, and then just click anywhere else, and we're back to things kind of being flat, right? So I'm going to go to my right view next, and I'm going to turn on perspective view, so I'm looking straight at it. I'm going to type in F for fit so you can see what I'm doing. And I could take and move this up and down vertically like that. Now I guess 3.5 wasn't quite enough, was it? So let's see here. I'll click on the height here, and let's make it 2.75. There we go. Now I can eyeball it and get it centered, and if that's what you want to do, that's fine. But again, Tinkercad has a much more elegant solution. So I'm going to select both pieces, and to do that I can do this. I can hold down my shift key, and while holding it down I can go click, click, and I notice up here I now have two shapes selected. Or I'll click outside to deselect everything. I can go ahead and just drag a selection box around it like that. That's my favorite way to do it. And again, we've got the two same shapes selected. Now here's a new tool. Right up here, this is called the Align tool. Keyboard shortcut is L. When I click on that, we get these grips here, and or not grips, they're kind of like alignment parts, and what it will do is we'll go ahead, and if I click in the middle, it'll go ahead and align it for us. Now sometimes that doesn't work very well, and I'll show you, talk about that in a second. I also want to take and click right there, and now that is in the middle, if you will, of the key fob. Now sometimes, let's undo that. Sometimes things jump around. This one is sitting on the work plane, correct? This one is a little bit higher, and that's fine. Sometimes when you use Align, the other part will move, and there's workarounds for that, but here's what I'm going to do to make sure it doesn't. I'm going to click on the main body of the key fob, and up here I'm going to lock it. That means it is not going to move. Then I'm going to select both, click Align, align it here, and align it there. And then I can go ahead and unlock it. Oh, wrong shape. There we go. Click on that and unlock it, and everything is just where we want it. Now we need to put a hole in the tab here, and so we're going to use our first hole. So I'm just going to pull it out here, and I'll click on the corner here and make it, let's see, we'll say 5, tab 5. Yeah, it looks about right. And then I'm going to move it over here so that it's sort of inside. So let's go to our top view here, and let's type in F to zoom in. And again, we want to use Align. So this time I'm going to take and drag a selection box around both of these, click Align, and you can see that when I kind of mouse over the button, it gives me a preview of what it's going to do. Now if you want to go ahead and get it centered the other way, this might work. Let's see. Yeah, that seems to set it up so that it is kind of right in the middle of that arc that makes up the tab for the key fob. The next thing I'm going to do is one of the things you're going to do in Tinkercad a whole bunch, and it's called a Boolean operation. That's what it's called in the 3D modeling world. They don't call it that in Tinkercad, they just call it grouping. So I'm going to select this, hold down my shift key, select the other part, or once again I can just drag a selection rectangle holding down my left mouse button, and as long as any part of what you want to select is inside of there, it'll select all of it. Up here you see we have two shapes, and right up here we have an icon for grouping. So I click that, and look what it did. It kept the solid and took the hole, and did the math to combine them together, and we now have a hole in our tab. If you decide you made a mistake and you want to make the hole smaller, you can click this group and come up here and ungroup it, and it'll take you back. And for example, you might want to take and change the radius of this to say 4 and 4, and then you could regroup it. But I'm going to go, I like what I have here, and so I'm just going to go ahead and group it, and we'll move on to embossing our name in it. The last thing we're going to do is go ahead and emboss our name, and we're going to use the text tool down here to do that. By the way, which was this one here? Round roof. Okay, this here is a roof. This is a round roof. Not that it really matters that much, but so anyways, I could take and just drag some text out like that, but that's not the way we want to develop our work habits. So I'm going to go ahead and delete it, and I want to put it on top of my key fob, so that's why I clicked on the work plane tool and put the work plane right up there. So you can see that we're drawing on top, if you will. Now I'm going to bring out text, and the text is now sitting on top of the main part of our key fob. Now we need to take and rotate that around, so I'll click right here. Sometimes you need to orbit around. It's sort of hard to see. There's a rotation tool, there's a rotation tool, and there's a rotation tool. So you can just click on it if you want and type in 90 degrees, or you can rotate it around manually. Kind of all the same thing. And then up here I'm going to go ahead and type in my name, so ERIC, and if you want you can change the font. There's not too many fonts available in Tinkercad, but to each his own. And if your name has more than 4 letters, I mean even this name it's too long, so we need to scale it down. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab that grip right there, and I'm just going to eyeball it. And to help eyeball it, I'm going to go to my top view, and that looks about the right size. Let's next go ahead and take and grab the other parts, and let's lock them. And then I'm going to click on this, and I click on my name, and I can kind of drag it around and get it to about where I want it to be, and that's probably looks okay. But let's go ahead and also select the main body of the key fob, choose the align tool, let's get it centered this way and get it centered that way, and I like that. Now remember when we dragged a hole out here? Well, you can take that hole and you can make it a solid. Likewise, I can drag this cylinder out here and I can make it a hole. So any shape in the library can be made a hole or a solid, but most of the time you're going to be taking a solid and making it a hole. So let's see, I'll delete that and delete that, click on this, zoom in, and I'm going to make my name a hole. Then I'm going to grab the little cone on top here, and I'm going to move it down, let's say move it down 2 millimeters. And now all I have to do to cut my name out of the body of the key fob is to go ahead and group them together. However, remember I lock this, so if I try to group these together, it's grayed out, and that's because, well, I have 2 shapes selected. This bottom part, the main body of the key fob, is locked. It can't accept any changes. So I'm going to select it, I'm going to unlock it, and then I'm going to grab all 3 elements, and I'm going to go ahead and group them together, and there we go. So I can reset my work plane, put it on the bottom like this, and our key fob is complete. By the way, I just noticed the tab is not the same color as the rest of it. And I think the reason why, yeah, I locked it. I did not unlock it, is what I'm saying here. So now, let's see, let's just go ahead and do this the right way. We take and select this, unlock it. I guess I probably just unlocked the main body. And now I'll grab everything together and group it, and it should all change the same color. And there it did. And if you don't like that color, you can just go ahead and change it any old way you want. And then I'll take my work plane, reset it, and there's our key fob. Now this is just some extra information on 3D printing, and to give you an idea of some of the things that you might want to learn as you progress through your studies. I have this model and I really like it, but I want to 3D print it. So what that means is I need to come up here and click on the export option. There's a couple, if you're laser cutting, you can do it as a SVG, but we're 3D printing, so we're just going to export it as a STL file, which is the most common file format for 3D printing. So up it pops, and I'm going to go ahead and save it. And so I now have a file, but what do I do with it? Well, I'm going to open up my slicing software, and I use Prusa Slicer. Every 3D printer, if it doesn't use Prusa Slicer, it probably uses some form of Cura, but I don't want to get too deep into the woods right now. So I'm going to go ahead and add my file, sort it by the date created, and there's my STL file, and there's my key fob. So there's several things that I could do with it, but what I really want to do at this point is what's called slicing. And what that does is that generates the information that the 3D printer needs to know so that it can establish all the different layers, the temperatures, and stuff like that. So I'm going to click Slice Now, and now it's been sliced. So you can actually see here every individual squirt or layer or extrusion, if you will, of filament. And so I can come down and look at each individual layer here. And you'll notice here in the middle that it's not solid, but what the 3D printer does is goes ahead and determines the parts that you can't see, just how much to fill them in. So that looks good. There's one more thing though that you need to keep in mind, and that is I need to probably add some supports, because this area right here on the tab, that's floating up in the middle of the air, if you will, floating up above the print bed. And so I'm going to add supports everywhere, and I'm going to go ahead and reslice it. And when we come into this area right here and kind of come around, see that blue right there? That is support material. So when I come down here, you can see this green area here is support material that the 3D printer lays down and to help support the tab in the middle, or that's just kind of floating above the bed. So I'm going to go ahead and export what's called G-code, and G-code is what the 3D printer reads. So I'll just go ahead and do that. It says it's going to take 40 minutes to print. And now I need to come back into a web browser here. Just open up a new tab here, put in the IP address for Octoprint. Octoprint is what I use to print. Now you would probably take that STL file, or excuse me, that G-code file that you just created and put it on an SD card, or share it with your teacher so that because your teacher might have their printer connected to their computer with a USB cable, whatever. But I have mine set up so that I could just go ahead and take care of business without having to get out of my chair. So like I said, you know, I'm 67 years old and I'm retired and I don't want to get out of my chair. So I'm going to go ahead and upload my model. And let's see, I have to go to the folder that it's in, and there it is there. And I can come into this and I'm going to go ahead and just click on printing it. And I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to film it and then I'll come back to you with the final results. So I can remove the build plate off of my 3D printer here. So here is my key fob. So all I have to do here is just kind of take and flex the spring steel and pull it off. And let's see. You can see here or actually on the back side here, you can see the support material that was printed. So all I have to do here is, excuse me, I have to go find some needle. Oh, here they are right here. Find some needle nose pliers, and I can just go ahead and pull that support material off. Yeah, it just takes a little bit of work, but it's the way all 3D printers are. And let's see here. There's some stuff there. Comes off pretty easy. There we go. So almost all of it is off. And you can just take a little bit of sandpaper and sand along these outer edges here that we're laying on the build plate. Same with the bottom right here. And you're pretty much good to go. So there it is right there. We have a hole drilled through there. Actually, I have to take and get the support material out of the hole. There we go. So there's my hole for my key fob, and that's what you do when you 3D print.